Never chase, never beg, never explain. Your silence become your superpower. Stoicism. Stoic warrior. Let me share something real with you about the world we live in. Everywhere you look, people are trying hard to prove something, that they're right, that they matter, that they deserve attention. They talk and talk, explaining themselves again and again, sometimes even begging, just so someone notices them. It's exhausting, isn't it? But here's the thing, the true Stoic doesn't fall into this trap. A Stoic doesn't beg for attention. He doesn't chase validation. And he certainly doesn't waste his energy explaining himself to people who have already decided not to understand. Silence. That's the Stoic strength. Think about what most people do when they get hurt, when they're rejected or misunderstood. They panic. They rush in to fix things. They try to explain themselves over and over, hoping to change the minds of people who don't care enough to listen. But that isn't courage. It's weakness disguised as courage. You know the feeling. You call someone and they don't answer. You send a message and get no reply. Still, you send another message, pouring your heart out, hoping that maybe this time, they'll see your worth. But the sad truth is that the more you explain, the more you beg, the more power you hand over to them. And that's exactly the opposite of what a Stoic does. Marcus Aurelius and Epictetus, some of the greatest Stoics, understood the power of silence deeply. Not because they didn't care, they cared deeply, but because they realized something crucial. The more we value things outside our control, the less control we have over our own lives. When you chase someone's attention or beg for their understanding, you're telling the world, my peace depends on how you respond. But that's not peace, it's a prison. Real strength looks different. It's when someone disrespects you and you walk away without a word, not out of pride, but because your dignity doesn't shout or beg. It simply stands quietly, strong. This silence isn't emptiness or weakness. It's discipline. It's self-respect. It's the inner power that says, I don't need to be heard by you to hear myself. And here's the kicker, that kind of silence scares people. Because when you stop reacting, when you don't fall into their traps, they lose the power they thought they had over you. Remember this, silence builds power, not weakness. It's the kind of silence that makes people feel your absence far more than your words ever could. If you're tired of chasing, overgiving, or being misunderstood, this is your moment to change. Imagine the last time you really wanted to explain yourself, to justify your feelings, your actions. Did it work? Did it make them understand? Or did it just push them further away? The more you chase someone, the more they pull back. The more you explain, the less they listen. But when you go silent, suddenly they notice. They feel the space you leave behind. That silence is a mirror, forcing them to look at their own behavior. It says, I saw what you did. I felt how you treated me. But I respect myself too much to beg or explain. This isn't pride speaking. It's clarity. You realize if they cared, they would have reached out. If they respected you, they wouldn't need a big explanation. If they were mature, they would have understood without you having to say a word. So you stop wasting your energy on people who don't even understand themselves. Some wounds heal best when you stop talking and start being still. Silence also helps you hear a deeper truth, not about others, but about yourself. In a world that never stops talking, silence is rare. When you're betrayed, most people rush to friends, social media, or confrontations, looking for quick answers or comfort. But the Stoic chooses a different path. He goes quiet, not because he's numb, but because he knows that true answers don't come from noise. They come from reflection. Marcus Aurelius said something that cuts deep. If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but your judgment of it. When you become silent, your mind calms down, and the truth rises up. You start to hear things you were too afraid to admit before. Maybe they never truly respected you. Maybe you're not angry they left. Maybe you're angry you stayed too long. Maybe what you really need isn't closure from them, but peace for yourself. That kind of insight doesn't come in a text message or in an argument. It comes in quiet moments when you stop trying to explain and start listening, really listening to your own heart and values. Because when you're hurt, your emotions scream. Chase them. Explain yourself. Prove your worth. but your values whisper. Hold your dignity. Protect your peace. Let go. There's one more hard truth many don't want to admit. Begging for closure often only hurts you more. We all want that final talk, that explanation that makes sense of the pain. But if someone truly cared, they wouldn't make you beg for it. And if they don't care, then your silence is the closure you need. Epictetus once said, "Don't explain your philosophy. Live it." When you stop chasing closure and start living your values, you stop needing others to validate your pain. The pain is real, but needing their explanation is you giving them control over your healing. Here's how the cycle often goes. They hurt you, you ask why. They avoid or coldly respond. You feel worse, and the cycle repeats. But closure isn't something they owe you. It's something you give yourself by walking away quietly and confidently. It's easy to think, if I just say how I feel, maybe they'll understand. But often, you're just talking to someone who already decided to hurt you. You waste energy hoping for an ending that won't come. That's not closure, it's self-betrayal. Real closure is acceptance. It's knowing that what they gave you was all they could give. It's letting go of the need for explanation or respect from them, because your worth doesn't depend on their recognition. You don't need them to say goodbye. You can say it yourself. You don't need a second chance from them. Your silence is enough. So stop writing those unsent letters. Stop rehearsing perfect messages. Stop chasing people who have already left your life. Your silence speaks volumes. It's your power. It's your peace. Silence isn't weakness. It's discipline. It's clarity. It's self-respect. It's the quiet strength of knowing your own value without needing the world to see it. Be still. Be calm. Be stoic. Let your silence be the loudest thing in the room. Say it with me now. My silence is my power. Imagine a quiet room where someone once spoke endlessly to be understood, to be seen, to be valued. But now, that person has fallen silent. At first, it feels strange, unsettling even. Silence carries a weight that words often cannot. When you stop explaining yourself, the masks around you begin to slip. People who once filled the space with noise start to reveal their true selves. Words can be clever, soft, and convincing, but silence exposes what words try to hide. Think about a time when someone apologized, promising they'd change, yet their actions told a different story. Or when someone gave explanations, yet their behavior kept repeating the same patterns. The Stoics, those ancient thinkers like Marcus Aurelius and Epictetus, taught that true understanding comes not from what people say, but from what they do consistently. When you stop talking, you stop feeding the story they want to tell. Instead, you watch quietly as their real nature unfolds. In this silence, the person who genuinely cares will reach out with honesty and warmth. The one who used you will disappear without a trace. The manipulator, once in control through your reactions, will grow restless, confused, or angry, not because you did something wrong, but because you stopped playing their game. It's like stepping back from a stage and letting the spotlight reveal the actor's true intentions. Words create illusions, but silence strips them away. You don't need to confront or test anyone. Simply withdraw your voice and observe. Notice who checks in when you're quiet, who vanishes when you stop giving, who becomes frustrated when they can no longer provoke you. This reality can be harsh, but it's necessary. People can dismiss your words, argue with your opinions, but they cannot ignore your absence. Silence doesn't beg for attention, it commands respect. Now, think about the urge to explain yourself when misunderstood. It's natural to want to defend who you are, to say, "That's not me." But the Stoic knows better. He understands that explaining yourself to people who have already made up their minds isn't confidence, it's fear disguised as a plea for approval. You waste your precious time and energy trying to fit into someone else's narrative, surrendering your peace for a fleeting chance of acceptance.
Real confidence comes from within. It is calm, quiet, and unshakable. The person who doesn't explain himself isn't proud or arrogant. He's at peace because he knows his own heart. His intentions are clear, his actions true, and his worth doesn't depend on others' understanding. This kind of strength is rare and often misunderstood. People might call you cold or selfish. Some will walk away. But losing those who never truly saw you is not loss, it's freedom. Most people don't want to understand you. They want to control the story they tell about you. When your silence breaks their illusions, they react not because you hurt them, but because you stopped playing by their rules. You stop justifying your distance, explaining why you left, or defending your peace. Instead, you act with quiet confidence. And those meant to be in your life will recognize and respect that without needing words. There is a unique power in choosing to walk away not with anger or drama, but with silent dignity. You don't slam doors or send final messages. You simply leave. And in that absence, the loudest lesson is taught. When you stop responding, the other person is left alone with their thoughts, their regrets, and the echo of your presence. Seneca once said, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." When you go silent, the mind has no one to argue with but itself. Your silence whispers, "I don't need to prove myself to you anymore. I won't stay where I am not valued. I choose peace over connection." People used to expecting noise, fights, or please don't know how to handle this kind of quiet strength. They expect you to chase, to fight, to come back. But you don't. And that scares them more than any argument could. Suddenly, they lose control because your energy is no longer theirs to command. They realize they don't have access to you anymore. This is when the real lesson begins. People don't learn respect from words shouted in anger. They might only learn it when your absence forces them to see what they lost. And if they don't learn, that's fine. The lesson was for you all along. You learn that your peace doesn't need permission. You learn that not everyone deserves your explanations. You learn that sometimes silence is not just strength, it's healing. Walking away in silence removes you from toxic cycles. You stop exposing your wounds to those who can't understand. You stop explaining your storms to people who live in calm weather. This detachment isn't about not caring, it's about caring enough to protect your soul. The Stoics never rushed to react or seek approval. They understood the power of silence. You don't have to shout, "I'm done." You just are done. That is true power. That is the kind of silence that terrifies those who thought they controlled you. So don't be afraid to detach. Step back quietly and let them sit in the space where your voice once was. If you've come this far, you already feel a shift inside, a quiet awakening. You realize you don't have to chase, beg, or explain to be worthy. You don't need to be loud to be heard. You don't need to prove your side to be understood. You don't have to sacrifice your peace for someone else's comfort. This is Stoicism, not coldness, but clarity. Not distance from love, but freedom from pain and need. Imagine being in the middle of a noisy crowd where everyone is shouting to be heard, trying to prove they're right or important. People argue, explain themselves over and over, hoping someone will finally see them. But then there's someone standing quietly, calm, still, not chasing attention or trying to prove anything. This is when the real lesson begins. People don't learn respect from words shouted in anger. They might only learn it when your absence forces them to see what they lost. And if they don't learn, that's fine. The lesson was for you all along. You learn that your peace doesn't need permission. You learn that not everyone deserves your explanations. You learn that sometimes silence is not just strength, it's healing. Walking away in silence removes you from toxic cycles. You stop exposing your wounds to those who can't understand. You stop explaining your storms to people who live in calm weather. This detachment isn't about not caring, it's about caring enough to protect your soul. The Stoics never rushed to react or seek approval. They understood the power of silence. You don't have to shout, "I'm done." You just are done. That is true power. That is the kind of silence that terrifies those who thought they controlled you. So don't be afraid to detach. Step back quietly and let them sit in the space where your voice once was. If you've come this far, you already feel a shift inside, a quiet awakening. You realize you don't have to chase, beg, or explain to be worthy. You don't need to be loud to be heard. You don't need to prove your side to be understood. You don't have to sacrifice your peace for someone else's comfort. This is Stoicism, not coldness, but clarity. Not distance from love, but freedom from pain and need. Power of silence. The Stoics, like Marcus Aurelius and Epictetus, taught us that silence isn't weakness. It's actually a way to take control. Instead of wasting energy fighting or explaining, silence helps you protect your peace. It's like stepping away from the chaos and choosing where you put your energy. Think about times when your emotions rise up, you want to argue, to explain why you're right, or to get someone to understand you. It feels urgent to speak up. But what if in those moments, choosing silence actually wins something greater? Maybe it doesn't win the argument, but it helps you win yourself back, your calm, your strength, your dignity. Every time you stay quiet instead of reacting, you build inner peace. Every time you walk away without noise, you build self-respect. Every time you hold on to your dignity instead of lowering yourself to drama, you create a strength that can't be taken away. This is not about being cold or distant, it's about knowing your worth deeply, even when no one else sees it. There's a story I heard about a wise man who was insulted in front of a crowd. Everyone expected him to fight back or yell, but instead, he smiled and said nothing. The silence confused those around him, and they realized his calm was stronger than their anger. This is the kind of power silence holds, it makes people question their own noise and control. You don't have to prove your value to anyone who doesn't want to see it. You don't owe explanations to those who have already made up their minds. When you stop chasing approval, you stop giving others power over your peace. Instead, you carry your peace quietly inside you, and that silence becomes your final word, not out of pride or anger, but out of deep respect for yourself. This kind of quiet strength can feel scary at first. People might think you're cold or uncaring. You might lose some who never truly understood you. But losing those people isn't really loss, it's making space for the right ones who will respect your silence. So next time you feel the urge to explain or fight, pause. Remember that silence is a choice, a powerful choice to protect your peace and your worth. It might not get you the immediate victory in words, but it wins something even better, your own calm and confidence. Thank you for listening. If this message speaks to you, please like it and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Write your thoughts and affirmations in the comments, your voice matters here. And subscribe for more wisdom to help you grow quietly strong. Before you go, write this in the comments: my silence is my final word and my greatest power.